Hi, I'm Trey Mack. I'm talking with Alice Pawley again, a professor at Purdue University. And this time in this video, we're going to be talking about some of the research that Alice's group at Purdue is currently working on. So Alice, the name of your research group is Feminist Research in Engineering Education, correct?
That's right.
The free group, right?
Right.
With that, like, is there something in particular you're trying to say with free, or is there something else behind the story of how that name came about?
Well, I am not the best namer. I have to talk with my peeps who can come up with acronyms for me. The key that I wanted to express when I started was actually to link my work with the word feminist and link that to engineering education research. So we put all those keywords in and came up with something. So we started off as RIFE, Research in Feminist Engineering, but my group, when it started, had very different interpretations of what feminist meant, and that we had to sort of discuss that and come to being okay with being identified as feminist, as a feminist research group. But then we realized over time the research we did is more on engineering education. It's entirely on engineering education itself, and so feminist engineering education research, those are the key ideas. So then we rearranged it to come up with a better acronym.
So my next question, so I love the name, Feminist Research in Engineering Education. I like how it just kind of jumps out there and grabs you, or it grabs me. But I know that, with a word like feminist in there, that can be fairly provocative. And you even said in your own research group you had to discuss what feminist, really meant. And, not everyone was immediately comfortable with having that in the name. So what exactly does, feminist research mean to you? And in particular, how is it carried out in the context of engineering education?
So the way we define it as part of the group is that we use gender as a primary lens of social analysis, right? It is a category of social analysis. It's not just a demographic variable that we manipulate in models. And so that's how we think about the role that gender plays, and then that makes it something that makes it feminist is that we work towards social change. So the goal is not just to do research that uses gender in thoughtful and theoretically justified ways, but also that works to change how we operate. And once we sort of came to that understanding, everyone seemed to be able to get on board with that interpretation. But some of my students have really embraced it, and some of them, what they find valuable about the concept is a link to social justice, and I think that's the thing that really links all of the work that my students are doing for their dissertations or for their the research projects that they're funded on or whatever, is that gender is a lens, and for some of us our primary lens for doing social analysis in order to change how engineering education happens. So I'm an associate professor in the School of Engineering Education, which is in the College of Engineering at Purdue. So I was evaluated for tenure by my traditional engineering disciplinary colleagues, so mechanical engineers and civil engineers and so forth. So that means that we look after our first year program here at Purdue, which is I think around 2,300 students, and then we have a bachelor's degree program in multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary engineering. And then we also have a PhD program in engineering education. So people who are interested in specifically studying better ways to have people learn engineering and research the different modes by which people do engineering or study engineering education as history or whatever, that's something that people now get their PhDs in. We are one of 4 or 5 key places. The other places are Virginia Tech, Clemson, Utah State, and Arizona State. And there are some other folks around the country, people at University of Washington, people at University of Georgia, who do engineering education research and have graduate students do engineering education research, but they're not in a department named engineering education. I'm glad to say that it's in the order of 20 to 30.
In the School of Engineering Education?
In the School of Engineering Education, I think we've got about 23, 25, something like that, full-time faculty. We have faculty at every level. Until recently, we've been mostly assistant professors, but now I think we're mostly associate professors. And we have about 70 or 80 PhD students who are working on dissertations focused in engineering education research. I think we're the largest of the different schools. We were the first to come out, but our colleagues around the country are looking to catch up with us, and we welcome that. It is great to have a vibrant national as well as local community of engineering education researchers.
Yeah, the graduate students that are in the program there, as undergrads, do they typically major in just engineering or just education or some mixture of the two? Like, how does that work when they're at the undergraduate level?
Right, so there are no undergraduate, well, there's one now, undergraduate program in engineering education. So there are science ed undergrad programs, but most of our graduate students come out of with engineering backgrounds, and then they have some experience which prompts them to want to investigate education further. Either they want to go into higher ed or K-12 education, and something has spurred them into taking this leap into graduate education. Now, the key thing is that we don't help, as part of our primary mission as the department, we don't help people become better teachers. I mean, we care about that because that's why many of us came into engineering education, is to make differences, right? To change engineering education itself, the practice of it. But a PhD, whatever discipline it's in, is a research degree. And so we have to sort of make sure that prospective students know that what they're going to be doing is not just trying to improve how a program works or improve how somebody teaches thermodynamics, but really understand the theory behind why, say, thermodynamics is taught in a particular way, or what is the learning theory on which different kinds of assessments are built and so forth. So it's a research degree, although it has a very sort of practical bent. You know, how do we help students in engineering classrooms learn engineering better? And you know, faculty who have taught classes for, you know, decades, they can sometimes know, for example, topics that students will systematically have problems with. Every year, it doesn't matter who's in their class, people always get stuck on this particular idea. And there are people who try to understand what is it about that idea that makes it so difficult, and what is it about that idea that is so crucial to students moving on and thinking about other ideas. So that there's a lot of philosophy, epistemology, learning sciences involved in trying to figure out how do we go about teaching this better.